The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the host and guest and do not reflect the opinions or policies of the station, its owners, or its advertisers. All content should be considered editorial in nature. Listener discretion is advised.
Recorded live. Cumberland County's smartest hour of talk radio. Welcome back to another edition of the Carolina Cabinet.
Well, everybody, good afternoon and welcome to the Carolina Cabinet. I'm your host, Peter Pappas, in studio with Mrs. Laura Musler.
Hello, hello.
And joining us today is County Sheriff's candidate, Mr. Troy McDuffie. Welcome, sir. Welcome. I'm trying to talk about being sheriffs. Okay. Well, we were discussing off air here. You definitely have some roots. We definitely crisscrossed. I've definitely made you some sandwiches in my lifetime.
Almost
at the restaurant.
Yes.
And
is there anybody you haven't made sandwiches for?
There could be a couple, three people that I didn't get to yet.
Okay, just checking.
So then I found out that you and my parents share a neighborhood.
We sure
so
do.
That's a small world. It really is. And then you shared a neighborhood with me before you moved to that neighborhood.
Exactly.
So I guess I can't say that you're not of the area.
No, definitely not.
So what did you grow up here? Like, tell me about your origin story. Like, where did you come from?
Well, my parents moved me to, we moved to Fayetteville when I was about 5 years old.
Okay.
I'm in my early 60s now, so that tells you how long. I'm actually 62.
Okay.
So I grew up in Fayetteville. I'm a military brat. Again, born in Fort Knox, Kentucky, but Fayetteville's my home. Fayetteville's is the only home that I know.
Okay. Fort Knox, Kentucky. What years were that?
Oh, I was a
you were a
infant
little guy. Okay.
Right.
Well, if my mom's watching, she's going to wonder because she and her father was stationed there for a little bit too.
Right.
Yeah, that was a big deal for her. So, all right. So you basically you're a Fayettevillean.
I am.
That's it. That's all there is to it. Where'd you go to high school?
Went to high school in the same area I live in, 71st High School.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so what was your first interest in law enforcement? When did you first get the bug?
Well, it's sort of a strange story. Law enforcement is not something that I grew up, it wasn't in my blood. For me, it was an opportunity. However, I do feel that it was my calling all along.
Okay.
The Lord knew that. But after high school, I joined, I was in college for about a year. I didn't go back and complete my education, but I left college and I started my career with the military. That was in 1982.
Okay.
Went through my base and went through AI, went through jump school training. And
I'm assuming Army, you didn't go to like Coast Guard or anything, right?
Nope.
That'd be kind of anti-Fayetteville if you went. Okay.
No, I was Army.
Okay.
After all my training, after going through jump school, I returned to Fayetteville and I served with the 82nd Airborne Division from 1982 to 1986.
Okay.
After leaving the military, as I was making the decision to leave the military, Fayetteville Police Department was looking for police officers, and that drew my interest. I wasn't for sure if I was going to stay in the military or if I was going to leave. I decided to I decided to start looking at law enforcement. I put in my application with Fayetteville. I went through the process, and I made the cut. And I ETS'd, or I left the military in November and started with the Fayetteville Police Department about two weeks later.
Okay. So I know this is milestones in your life. So how old were you when you? I could do the math. Maybe what was it, 88, 89? When did you do this?
Right. So let's see. I left, graduated in 81. Started with the military in 82 and served there from 82 to 86. And served a couple of years as a guardsman, but I started with Fayetteville Police Department in November of 1986.
Excellent. Okay. So how many chiefs ago was that? Let's see. No, was that Chief Hansen back then?
Chief Hansen.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Chief Hansen. So I had a 16-year career with Fayetteville.
Okay.
Started as a patrol officer, worked the road for about 5 years, moved on to investigation. And I probably spent the remainder of my career in investigations from working property crimes all the way up to violent crimes. Had a stint working in the child abuse section. I worked in that section about 8 years. A lot of opportunities with Fayetteville. The last, my last assignment with Fayetteville was a homicide investigator. I served as a homicide investigator for a few years. I did take a leave of absence for a year. I left Fayetteville in, I think it was 1999, 2000. I took an assignment with the UN peacekeeping force in Bosnia. I served as a civilian police officer there for a year before returning to Fayetteville in 2000. And in 2002, the late Sheriff Peterkin ran for the sheriff's position in Hope County. He asked me if I would come leave Fayetteville, if I would come to Hope County as his chief deputy. I just want to say I did serve as a deputy.
Okay, all right, there you go. See, I wasn't totally off.
Yeah, I served as a chief deputy.
All right.
Yeah, so my career took me to Hope County. That really started my executive career in law enforcement.
Because you've been hands-on up till then. Exactly. You weren't a white shirt for most of your career.
No.
Right.
What was the biggest difference between being a hands-on to going into the executive area?
Big difference, hands-on, you worry about yourself. Pretty much. You investigate your cases. It's you don't have the responsibilities that you have in the executive branch. Moving into the executive branch, you start, running the organization, supervising employees. Big difference. You're managing a lot of other folks, and you have a lot more responsibilities.
What did you find was your biggest obstacle in making that switch?
My biggest obstacle, again, probably the management of personnel, managing employees, especially some of the employees that you once worked with, but it wasn't a big adjustment for me.
Well, I mean, look, across America, we know that law enforcement's under pressure. And I joked before that we grew up with these great rap songs of, F the police, but now it's become a reality.
Correct.
And, recruitment's down. People are not happy with police. So because you've been there, I would say before the before time. Okay. Were we always kind of short police, or do you remember a time when we were overabundant with having people that were applying and wanting to serve?
Right. I can't say we were overabundant.
Okay.
But looking back on my earlier years, there wasn't, a struggle like it is now to recruit and retain police officers. Big difference. Of course, you didn't have the, the budget. Even Fayetteville, itself, you didn't even have the population, so you didn't need as many police. You look at the annexation.
Yeah, that was the big boom annexation, they called it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that made a big difference, especially for Fayetteville Police Department.
So about the annexation, that happened 98, 99, sometime around there.
I don't think so.
All right, we'll just call it 2000. So, but wouldn't the sheriff's department, being that it was all county, wouldn't they have had deputies assigned to that area? And couldn't it just been a shift of, if they were deputies, maybe they could have been hired on at Fayetteville? Like we had a big bucket of law enforcement officers. Did some maybe just not switch over? Or how did, were you really active back then? I don't
really, I mean, during those times, and again, I didn't go into the executive branch until 2002. But if I have to look back, during, that time span, I probably would say that the sheriff's office, they didn't have probably the manpower that was, that of course that they have now. And I'm sure they only had the manpower, to cover a lot of the areas, the county areas that they had jurisdiction over. It's a good question.
I'm just thinking, what did they do? Redeploy? You had this whole section of the west end of Cumberland County that wasn't annexed. You had to have deputies covering it, so there had to be a shift. I mean, just
Where did those deputies go?
well, that's the thing. Where did they get reassigned?
Right.
And then we had all the stuff that's happened in the last 5-6 years that really, down the reputation of law enforcement. It really led to a bad apple situation. It's not everybody. So after you came back from Bosnia,
right,
you were with Fayetteville for like another year or so, and then
another 2 years.
Okay.
That's when I served in the homicide unit. I served in the homicide for my last 2 years at Fayetteville, and again in 2002, I left and took the position of chief deputy with Hope County. Moving on, I served under Sheriff Hubert Peterkin probably for about 3.5 years. And in June of 2006, I was approached about applying for the vacant police chief position with the Red Springs Police Department.
Okay.
So I applied for that position, went through the assessment process, and I was hired as the Red Springs Police Chief, and actually, I think in June of 2006.
How long did you serve out there?
I served about 3.5 years as a police chief in Red Springs. Much different, in Robertson County. Red Springs is a tough,
rural.
Yes,
yeah.
I don't know how anybody would commit crime. He's like so calm, like just talk.
Well, that's what you want after you just show true love to your domestic violence partner. But
I'm just saying.
Well,
how can anybody commit a crime around you? Just
I hear that a lot. You know what? Trust me, there's another side.
Well, I was gonna ask you. You did 2 years with homicide. It's like I wonder if he aged like dog years. Like that's got to be a tough, high stress job. Right. So for every year you age 3, probably being on that role. I mean, Or did you just find a good way to cope with it, and you were able to?
I do. Okay. My way of coping. Again, what you hear and see, in front of this camera today. That's just me. But again. And my, folks that have worked for me know that, when you have to turn that level up, I've never had a problem with that.
Okay. So how large of an agency is Red Springs? And I'm not poo-pooing it at all, but like how many sworn officers did you have there?
Red Springs, I think I had about 20, maybe at the max, I had about 25 sworn officers.
And what was the budget?
Oh, back then, that was back in 2006. It wasn't much. I know that. Maybe $1 million,
wow,
a couple million.
That's a lot with a little.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so in 2009, I think the Spring Lake Police Department collapsed in 2008.
Okay. That was what I was going to ask you. I knew you were with Spring Lake, and I'm going to say, look, was he there the before time or the after time?
After.
So definitely the after time.
Definitely the after. Definitely the after. And a lot of folks get that, or some folks get those times mixed up. I came in at the AC Brown. We used to work together with the Fayetteville Police Department. Maybe it's just AC Brown was a African American, and I'm coming in behind him, and they assumed that that it was me that was responsible for what happened in Spring Lake. Certainly it was not. I came in, I was brought in to fix it.
Right.
And I did apply for that job in 2009. Went through a lengthy assessment process. In December of 2009, I was hired as the new police chief in Spring Lake. For me, it was an opportunity to come back to Cumberland County. I still lived in Cumberland County most of the years that I spent in Hope County and even in Robertson County, but it was an opportunity for me to come back to Cumberland County. I feel like I was the perfect person for that job. You needed somebody to come in to work with the elected officials, work with, I work with Ed Brannis.
So, well, let me ask you that. Part of the interview process for Spring Lake, because, what local government commission had basically taken over the finances. The Cumberland County Sheriff's Department had taken over the policing of anything felony and up. I think they still had Spring Lake Police doing misdemeanor.
No,
doing nothing.
No police power.
Okay. So, I mean, you were starting from scratch. So how different do you think your interview was compared to just a regular, we have an operating agency and we just need a new chief? I mean, what were they looking for? What qualified you to jump in there and do that?
Well, my career, my experience in Cumberland County bode well. Remember, Ed Grannis was a district attorney. One of the things that I left out, I worked at the district attorney's office for about a year as Fayetteville police, for the Fayetteville police as their liaison. So I had a relationship with Mr. Grannis. The key players involved, Beth Cleaver, she was the chief district court judge. Of course, Moose Butler, he was the sheriff. So all of these entities, I had, they were familiar. There
was a close relationship beforehand.
Exactly.
Okay. But was there were there any extra steps maybe taken because of the state of where the town was? Do you think that they were, I don't know, did they expand their search? Did they just try to say, look, let's get somebody that we know to restart this thing? And I'm not doing your qualifications. I'm thinking you had to start from zero.
Well, the search was nationwide.
Okay.
I just made the cut.
Okay.
I think when we started off, it was 60 applicants, but I think my application stood out because of the fact that I was a local,
and they didn't have to pay moving expenses.
Yeah. Yeah. But see, you know what? That
I don't know.
I'm joking.
Yeah, they probably did. But, that's one thing that does aggravate me with city, county government management. They'll pay $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 for a nationwide search.
Right.
And then we go with the guy that we already knew we knew he could have done the job to begin with.
Right.
And I mean, that just frustrates the absolute hell out of me.
Well, they used, they hired out they used a consulting firm.
Of course. They love doing that.
Yeah.
Come on.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, but anyway, it worked out. Again, I took over in late December of 2009 with absolutely no police powers. I think I had about 8 officers at that time, and they were serving under an interim chief.
Right.
But we had no police powers.
What were they doing? What were they doing in this?
Just training, administration. Because there was a back and forth decision as to whether or not they wanted to just completely disband the Spring Lake Police Department. I think the town sort of pushed back on that. They wanted an opportunity, which was I felt like it was a good decision on their part, regardless of the size of your community. Having your own local police department, the department that knows the community, that gets to know the community, is important.
Okay. Well, and as I went around the county last year, or in 24, there's some police departments with 2 members or 1 member. In some of the small, I can't remember if it was Godwin Falcon. They had just hired somebody. He was the chief, and he was the chief of himself because there was nobody else working. Right. But I think it is important to have somebody local. Although with all the trouble Spring Lake went through, my opinion was enough.
Right.
They're trying so hard to be independent. It's like, look, there's a economy of scale.
Right.
To use with the larger agency and things that the larger agency can do. But you were able to go in and rebuild the department, which I think is, that's just very impressive that you did that. How many officers did you get up to before how long were you there?
I was there from 2009. And again, I submitted a 4-phase plan to get the Spring Lake Police Department back, back on track, so that it was a fully functioning police department. That's all I knew. I didn't want a department where we only did the misdemeanor crimes and, maybe your violent crimes, but not homicides, not sexual assaults. I felt like under my leadership, I had that experience. I did a lot of these things. It was, my job to lead the.
You wanted the whole buffet. You didn't want a la carte.
Exactly.
Okay.
But anyways,
with me.
But anyways, to answer that question, when I left, I from 2009, I led the department up until 2017, and at that time, the department was a fully functioning department. It took me about 4 years to get the all of the the investigations back. Homicide was the last investigation. So that took about 4 years. So we were a fully functioning department. We had reconnected with the community. We were able to rebuild that trust with the community. It was no longer us against them. The department was back on track.
Yeah, it's never us against them with any of these local departments, but it gets perceived that way real quick.
Well, again, you look at the leadership, at times, leadership, and I've always said it starts at the top, and the top, in my opinion, dictates how these officers go out and police their communities. I want officers to go out there and do their jobs, and I support that. And anybody that have worked for me know that. But I never want a situation where officers go out and do their own brand of policing. So just a reconnect with the county. With the citizens went a long ways in building the trust back with the department. But I did retire in 2017. I retired, and I was. They hired a new chief. They brought in an assistant chief from Fayetteville. I won't name his name, but anyway, he took over as a police chief after I left. They went through the same assessment process, and he stayed probably about 8 months before he left and took a job at another state. So the town manager at that time contacted me and wanted to know if I would return on an interim basis until they hired a new chief. Well, I agreed to that, so I returned about 8-9 months later.
Okay,
as took over as interim chief. That town manager decided to move on. He took another job. They hired another town manager.
Jeez.
I went through.
Well, they just fired one 2 days ago out there.
Hey, listen,
so
I probably went through around 10 interim and permanent managers during my stint in Spring Lake, but. Again,
fortunately, they had you to call on speed dial and say, "Hey, come back," and
they did
do us a solid. But see, that right there feeds into why I felt like Spring Lake should not be a Spring Lake, because there's too small, it's too close, it's too personal politic. Forget the party politics stuff.
Right.
Way too personal. I mean, the vote the other night was 3-2, and the mayor was in the one of the two votes to keep the town manager. They fired the man for no cause, which. I'm sure I've been told there's going to be other details coming out. There probably was cause, but they call it no cause now. But you can't keep swapping these people and have any continuity for the community.
Yeah, that's always been something. It's been an issue. With Spring Lake. Trust me, I went through enough of it, and it's always difficult as a police chief. That was my closest relationship. My relationship with the town manager. I reported to the town manager.
Okay.
But a town manager would come in and we'd establish a good working relationship, and next thing you know, it moved on.
Yeah.
So you got to build another relationship, and that was difficult.
Well, yeah, you're always in the building phase. You can't operate.
Right. Exactly.
You're distracted with all this. Well, let's get started again instead of can we police?
Right.
I mean, So small town. I would call it inner office politics. It's not even inner agency. That's like inner office. You're all aren't they all in the same building anyway? The police department, were they not co-located with town hall and everything before?
Well, they are. One of the things that, the main part of the police department is inside of town hall.
Right.
But we had a police annex.
Okay.
That was one of the things that we did while I was my tenure there. We completely restored our the police annex, expanded it, and that was most of my operations. The evidence room, your detectives, all the special units, any special units that I had, they were housed at.
That was like the Spring Lake Police she shed. That's where they went away to do the work.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to be bothered with the elected.
She shed.
The she shed, he shed, whatever. So,
but I stayed, and when returning. They hired another town manager. He asked if I would stay on a permanent basis for a few more years, which is what I did. So I ended up staying probably another 4 years before finally retiring again. And I think it was like March in 21.
Okay.
And so I retired in March of 21 from Spring Lake, for good. I was retired probably for maybe another 6 months, and then I cut my retirement short again. I took a position.
He's a glutton for punishment.
I was going to say, you're married, right?
I'm married.
Okay. Does your wife not want you at home or something? Like what? You keep getting pushed out.
Well, there was a lot of things that sort of took place in between. Maybe if I get a chance, I'll go into that. But my wife's a school teacher, so she's still working.
Okay.
And in between, I think I retired in 2021. My wife and I were extended our family. She didn't have any kids. I was remarried. So I have a 4-year-old son.
Okay.
So from after leaving Fayetteville, Spring Lake, I was deputy chief with the VA Police Services. I held that position probably not very long, maybe about 7 months.
Where was that based?
Okay, so the police services for the VA, we were responsible for the Ramsey Street location, Rayford Road location, Jacksonville, a couple more small.
So it wasn't just the two here; it was other sites.
Right. Right. So I pretty much ran the Ramsey Street location, in the chief. He was they had a chief of police. I was a deputy police chief of police. I stayed in that position for 6 or 7 months, but then with the birth of my son, my father was, we're dealing with him with his dementia, taking care of him. I left the position after about 7-8 months and dedicated my time to my family for the last 3.5 years, and that ends the story. That's where I was until I made the decision to run for election for sheriff.
Okay.
So what was the catalyst that made you decide to run for sheriff after taking time with your son and your dad? What said, you know what, I don't want to be home anymore. I want to go and deal with all of this all over again. What was the catalyst?
I don't think, that's not the case. I'll be honest with you. I think by this time, my son's a little bit older. My father passed a couple years ago. And I was approached about considering coming out of retirement and running for sheriff.
When you say you were approached, did we not have any other good quote unquote candidates, or did you know who was running? Or
I don't know about the other candidates. All I can tell you is that I was approached.
Okay.
And so I thought about it. I considered it, and I sat down. My wife and I, we talked, and I made the decision. Okay, if this is a calling, if the community, the Cumberland County community, I know this community, I know what I bring, to the table. If I can bring that type of leadership to the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office, then I've made the decision to run for Cumberland County Sheriff.
Okay.
So there's a trust gap between some communities and law enforcement here in the area. So what specific steps would you take as sheriff in your first 90 days to increase transparency and to rebuild trust, especially in underserved neighborhoods?
I think my career will bode well in that. Looking at the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office, it's an established, accredited agency. I think what I will do is do some evaluation. I spoke about it before, my experience of rebuilding trust. I don't think you're going to find a more perfect example than the example that we talked about earlier in Spring Lake. That was, part of what had to take place in order to get the department back on track. So some of the things that I look forward to is just engaging more, with the community, just evaluating to see, okay, what's in place now, and then focusing, on just building stronger relationships, and again, just piggybacking to what it took. Yeah, smaller community, but still, you're gonna run into that same issues if there's a lot of distrust, with the agency in the community. I don't see where there's that level of distrust now with the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office in the Cumberland County community. Mm-hmm. So, just some of the things that we did, and then, building trust in Spring Lake, I'll bring that right here to Cumberland County. And transparency was one of the things that I think a lot of the local news reporters that work with me, if you go with, and you can just read some of the articles. Mm-hmm. I've always tried to be transparent and keep things out in the open,
right,
and not shut the department out. Excuse me.
So this big thing about civilian review boards, how do you feel about them? And if you're against them or opposed to them, what kind of alternative independent oversight would you propose?
Civilian review boards. I'll be perfectly honest with you. That's just not something that I've had to deal with, that I dealt with in my career. I can't say that I'm opposed to them. Again, it goes back to transparency. It's something with my command staff that we'll sit down. We'll see what the expectations are or what they are expecting, from the organization. And then I'll, move forward in how we work with, these agencies, or if they are put in place.
I mean, I think my perception of them up till now has been that they're reactionary.
Agreed.
Right. It's not that.
And nobody can see what it's like to be under assault or in a situation if you've never been in that
Absolutely.
situation. I think civilian review boards should be civilians prior police.
Right.
I agree. They need to have some kind of training as to what they're seeing. I don't agree with them being able to pierce the veil of getting into HR records and,
I agree.
Forcing the release of certain body cam footage. Honestly, to me, is more incendiary. Mm-hmm. I've been operating on the 72-hour rule lately. Mm-hmm. When something happens, just give it a minute.
Right.
Let it percolate through the channels of whatever before I start with my online Facebook Juris Doctorate degree and start pontificating on what I saw. I think we need to give you, the hired, or in this case elected professionals, the chance to do your professional stuff and knock it out. So I hope.
Well, one of the things I will say, as a leader throughout my career, I believe in running my department with the sheriff office, whether it's a police department with a town manager. One of the things that I used to always, I would have the conversation with the town managers, hey, I respect your position. I respect who I report to, but you have to let me run this police department. I expect to run the police department. You run the town. You can't have civilians running police departments. And I never had a problem with it. I mean, there was
lucky for you, if you get elected sheriff, you're it.
Right.
They can't see. Nobody can really tell you anything unless you mess up so bad that the North Carolina legislature calls you up for a visit. And Mecklenburg County, their sheriff, their district attorney, and I believe the police chief were called. There was a hearing yesterday. But I think this whole week they've been having hearings because of what happened last year with the young lady being killed on the rapid transit.
Right.
They passed Irina's law, and now they're basically saying, okay, Charlotte, you got a problem. We need to see you.
Right.
Because they're really the only legislative body that can essentially call a sheriff to the carpet.
Right.
I don't know. I think county commission, their only string with you is they can make your budget pretty anemic pretty quick. So
they hold the purse,
but they don't really have oversight because you are an independent elected. Between you and the DA, you're the tops.
Exactly.
That's it.
And that's what I believe in, especially when it comes to a law enforcement agency. You have to let, the elected leader, or if it's an appointed leader, run the agency.
Tell him what you think about elected leader.
There's no such thing as an elected leader.
Okay.
They do not exist. If you are elected, you are not a leader. You are a representative of the people that put you in office. You do not lead other than your staff, but you are not an elected leader.
And that was exactly one of the responses I gave to. So
I can agree with that. Okay.
So,
just the different knowledge. I can agree with that.
Yeah. Well, we want you to lead, but we want you to represent us.
Right.
That's and lead the way we want to be represented. But and I have. Okay, so Facebook is just a horrible place. I have actually defended the sheriff in Mecklenburg. I troll him most times, but this time they were calling him a DEI hire. So I said, hey, he's not a hire. He was elected by the people that wanted him to be in office. There's no hiring with the sheriff.
Right.
But then I do troll him a little bit when he's not showing up in his uniform. I'm always like, hey, man, where's your uniform? Come on. So you're going to be a uniform sheriff or a suit wearing sheriff?
Uniform.
Okay.
Some of both, though.
Okay.
I do believe
you can have casual Fridays. You can wear a suit.
Yeah, I do believe in, there are occasions, especially, sort of connecting, to the community where civilian attire, can be appropriate. Okay. But for the most, throughout my career, I've done both.
Okay.
I've done both. But the latter part of my career, I think I settled down more into the uniform.
Mm-hmm. That's just easier. You don't have to choose what you got. This time match that. Right. So go ahead.
I do. So sheriff's office budgets are under scrutiny. Mm-hmm. So if there are some budget cuts that are proposed, where would you make cuts without harming public safety, and how would you protect officer training and community programs?
Well, again, it's a good question.
Thanks.
I
just, but every once in a while I get a good one out there.
It's a good question, but it's a difficult question for me to answer because I really don't know the structure of the sheriff's office. One of the things that I've tried to do, throughout these interviews is to stray away and talk to folks. And I know folks want to know. They want to ask these questions. What I'm going to do? You're going to come in and do this. I like to take a time to evaluate what I have. What's in place when it comes to a budget. What's putting the biggest strain on the department. And once I can get in office. And really get a in-depth look at the sheriff's office budget, then I think I can make that determination as far as where, if I'm going to have to make these cuts.
Well, currently we know that we're 40% short in officers. We're only staffed at 60%.
Right.
So what is it that you're going to bring to the table to increase officer turnout and recruit more officers?
We'll sit down, with my recruiting team. I think, my position of coming into the sheriff's office with the years of experience, being in law enforcement over 35 years, so many officers that have worked with me that are still working. I think that will bode well. Just my. Not to tout or brag about,
You can brag. It's okay. You should be bragging. You're running for office. Brag away. You are the greatest of all time.
hey, you got to think that.
Right.
But I think that will go well with recruitment. Just the number of, of officers that have contacted me, that's just going to be a small percentage. And there's, I think that's just going to bode well with recruitment, how we'll bring in officers, incentives. I think the pay is up, that will help recruit and retain officers that we have. And also, when it comes to retaining, my job is to come in and look at the morale, build that morale. You'd be amazed when officers, when they respect their leadership, the morale is lifted up in the agency. It goes a long way.
Well, the recruiting. Respect, it's, give me some leadership that's respectable and we'll respect you.
Right.
Exactly. You got to put out what you want to get back.
So what about body cameras? How do you feel about body cameras on all officers at all times, and are there ever any exceptions? Because there's a big thing push for ICE to have body cameras. So how do you feel about the sheriff?
Well, the sheriff department, that policy is already in place. They have body cameras. My experience with body cameras, most of the agencies that I've led, they've been useful, and most of the time they've been more helpful in clearing an officer versus catching them doing something that they shouldn't have been done. But that policy is already in place. Sheriff officers, the deputies have body cams.
Okay. Well, it certainly gives me TikTok videos to watch when people want to mouth off on the side of the road.
We're not allowed to see those videos, though. We have to petition.
Well, somehow they get out. I mean,
it's like an act of Congress to get them out. They're not.
To release the full thing because it's considered. I think it's considered HR or something. How does it get prevented to be released? What's the protection around that video?
It goes back to a state legislation. I mean, because it's evidence.
Okay.
So
I think we should have live streaming. I would watch that all day.
I think we did. I think Fayetteville or one of the agencies had a live PD episode recently. Maybe
no, I'm just talking
Cumberland
about
County.
You can tune into certain officers and watch them work.
There is enough stuff on my social media. I don't need more feeds.
Cool. You could find enough on social media, probably.
Just saying.
So listen, Laura asked you what you're going to do and all, and I think it's incumbent it's very American as apple pie to us lately. It's what are you going to do in your first 100 days? We want our leaders to go in. Our electeds to go in with a plan. So you'll have some time between election night, November, if you get past this primary,
right.
To being sworn. I think you have 2 weeks until you're sworn in, so you better think quick.
Right.
But have you started putting together what you would consider your first 100 days plan?
I haven't.
Okay.
To be honest with you.
That's fine.
Because
he's got to make it through the primary first.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
No reason to make undue work.
If you make it past the primary, then we bring you back and we talk about, all right, where's our 100 days?
Right.
Okay.
Then I'll really kick in.
Fair enough.
But it's enough, the campaigning for the primary, I'm coming out of retirement, but I really focused, on getting past the primary. If Lord willing, if I am the candidate, then certainly I'll be glad to come back and we can really sit down. Then I can kick out.
Oh, I'm going to pepper you with phone calls so you come back. We're just going to aggravate the hell out of you till you do.
Okay.
So do you? I'm about ready to wrap it up. We're about 43 minutes.
You have a question that you have to ask.
Oh, I do.
Mm-hmm. You ask all the sheriffs.
Okay.
We can't let him get away.
No, I'm not. I'm not letting him off the hook. He can handle this stuff.
Okay.
So there's been part of the hubbub around Irina's law, and then of course the national temperature of ICE baby.
Mm-hmm.
What is the role of the county sheriff when it comes to ICE detainers and stuff like that? Can you tell me a little bit about what you know about it and maybe how you'd handle it?
Well, it's a good question.
We have a lot of good questions here.
Yeah. Again, I'm gonna stay within the parameters of the law.
What does that mean?
And what are the parameters you got?
The parameters, if ICE places a detainer,
mm-hmm.
On an individual,
mm-hmm.
and the law states that I have to, or we shall detain this individual until such time, then certainly I'm going to work, with the agency.
Is it open-ended, or is there a certain amount of time that you're supposed to hold on to them from ICE?
Right. I can't answer that question. I'll be honest with you, because I've worked, as a police chief.
Mm-hmm.
That's the functions of a sheriff's office.
Right.
Way back in, when I was with the Hope County Sheriff's Office, that was 20-some years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't answer that question for you.
Okay.
I'll just be honest with you,
So,
but I will say this again, if legislation requires me, to, operate within certain parameters, then certainly that's what we will.
Well, and that legislation was passed last year around the time it was Irina's law, and I really need the bill number for what it was, but it was compelling all 100 county sheriffs in North Carolina to cooperate with ICE. Now, we've had certain sheriffs that I feel like put politicking over policing,
Right.
and they're publicly, we're not going to agree. We're not. And to me, the supremacy clause of the Constitution says I'm federal government. We're here, you got to follow along.
Right.
But I don't think it's compelling you to go out and find people for ICE.
Right.
It's just saying if you book them and they flag as detainer, then you hold on to them until ICE. But I don't think ICE has several months to go do it. I think they have to do them in a reasonable amount of time. They got to pick them up. Because what does it cost to house a prisoner nowadays in Cumberland County jail? I mean, any idea?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I couldn't tell you.
I mean, if it's $100 a day, I mean, I wonder if ICE is going to reimburse us.
Right. And I even with that, and saying, the federal government is responsible, for, if you detain a federal detainee, then it's their responsibility to cover the cost of housing that individual.
Well, I hope so. And I hope it's not tough to get reimbursed, I hope we make the receipts in triplicate and make sure it goes to the federal government and we get our money back here. So, so Mr. McDuffie, it's been a pleasure having you today.
Thank you.
But Laura, we didn't ask his website, nothing. I feel bad.
I was waiting for your ICE question.
Ice baby, I'm done.
Okay,
so
very good.
So
okay, so tell me, I am a constituent and I want to get up with you and I want to give you money or I want to work the polls for you. How do I get a hold of you, Mr. McDuffie?
She's got a great pair of heels for that too.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You can reach me at electtroymcduffie.com. That's my website. On that website, you can donate. You can volunteer. Any contact information that you're seeking, you can reach it at electtroymcduffie.com.
It's on the screen now.
And I just put it on the screen. So
And I will tell everybody once again my little speech. Campaigns run on money. And not everybody has money, so everybody has time, though. So if you cannot give money, then you support Troy McDuffie, then you should volunteer your time.
Please, please, please. And remember, early voting begins tomorrow.
Holy smokes. Today's the 11th.
Today's the 11th. So we're recording on the 11th and February 12th, D-Day.
Yep.
That's the main event for you Politico types. So
it is.
Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you,
and
sir.
Everybody watching, thank you for tuning in. Until next time, we're the Carolina Cabinet.